In this video, I'm going to be showing you guys the cooler leak on your 5.9 or 6.7 Cummins diesel engine. So these are the Ram trucks. This is going to apply to most of your 6.7s, and this is actually a 6.7, but there is an oil cooler that tends to fail, or the gaskets around it fail. So if you guys notice this strange drip and you're smelling coolant and it's coming from your passenger side here, I'm getting these drips that are kind of a little bit of both. It's got a little bit of oil in it and a little bit of coolant. And then if you look over here, if you take off your fender liner, if you see in there that plate right behind where your oil filter screws onto, if that's wet, then you're going to be looking into doing the same repair that we're going to be doing here in today's video. So there's two aspects to it. There's the plate that goes on the outside that actually houses your oil filter. There's a gasket. And then there is an internal oil cooler, and then there's another gasket on the back side of that. So more than likely, it's just going to be the gaskets. The gaskets are known to fail, but this job is a little bit extensive in the sense of draining your fluids, because you're going to have to drain your coolant and then redo it. And it is kind of known on the internet that sometimes the oil cooler can actually leak, and what will happen is it's this cooling brick. I'll show you guys this one. Going to be replacing it with this product here. It comes with everything. It comes with both gaskets that I was mentioning, and it comes with a brand new oil cooler. I'll link this down in the description below for you guys. But this here comes with one of the gaskets. You can see the gasket here has all these ridges to kind of keep and channel all the fluids appropriately. And then if I lift this up here, these are the two passages that oil goes through. It's kind of a strange design. Essentially, this cooler is a brick that sits inside the block of your 6.7 or even 5.9 Cummins. So it passes oil through here and coolant is surrounding this. So what happens is if the gasket around here fails, then you get oil, coolant, and if any of these ports end up, the gasket around them fails, so you can have mixture of fluids. Last but not least, if this here fails, which is kind of a somewhat known issue, then oil will actually come out. And because your oil pressure, it can be, upwards of 50-60 psi. That pressure is higher than what your coolant runs at, which is about 21 psi is what the cap's rated for. It will actually force its way into the cooling system, and you can start getting a milky deposit in your reservoir. So some people might think it's a head gasket, and it could just be this oil cooler. So a lot of people say this is a very effective cooling strategy, but with age it can fail. So anyways, we got two gaskets, an oil cooler, and now we just need to get to work. And as far as diagnosis, you can rule out being a head gasket by using a head gasket test kit. So essentially what you do is you put it here, it's got blue dye in it, you get the engine up to temperature and you pull air out of here and it mixes with the dye, and if it has exhaust like combustion gases in it, it'll turn like a yellowish green. I've done that, it's passed that test, and what it ends up being is that the gaskets essentially have failed around that. Could be the oil cooler, but like I said, since I'm in there, this kit is pretty affordable. I'll link it for you guys. Let's get straight into it. So I'm gonna drain my coolant. I'm gonna try to capture some of it as much as I can because it's literally brand new Mopar 10-year fluid, and then once we drain the coolant, then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, first things first, if you look right down here, you're gonna be able to get to the drain for the coolant. So on mine, it happens to be like a little wing nut. It's almost impossible to show you, but if you reach your arm down here, you'll be able to get to it, and then you can put a hose on the side of it and catch the majority of the fluid. So since my fluid is literally brand new, right where the drain petcock is, you'll see like a little spigot off the side of it. You can shove a hose onto it like I have done here, and then you can capture it in a clean bucket like I'm gonna do here, since there's literally no point, and I just changed this about a week ago. So if yours is dirty and you want to change it, you might not care so much. You probably just put a bucket underneath it and catch it off the frame rail or something like that, but in my case, I want to collect it cleanly, and that's what I'm doing here. Also, you might notice the vehicle's in a different orientation, so there's another oily and antifreeze drip coming off the side there that you can see on the ground, and it is dripping out from where your little drain catch pan would be where you change your oil. Okay, so it's done draining, and if you guys are wondering how much is going to come out, here's a 5-gallon bucket, and it filled it about 3/4 of the way. And then over here, I'm going to go ahead, I took the intake off, so whether it's stock or whatever intake you have, take it out of the way, and then we'll take the alternator out. So disconnect your batteries, disconnect the positive, take the tension off of your belt, pop the alternator out of the way, And then also you're going to want to take your fender liner out because it's going to be pretty easy access this way. I'm probably going to take this wheel off just so I can get in here and really be able to service this thing without being upside down. You probably could do it from the top here. I don't know, I might still try to do it from the top, but I'm at least going to get the alternator out of the way, and I'll just keep plugging along and showing you guys how I get it out. All right, so here's kind of the view once you remove the alternator. So definitely worthwhile to get that out of there. It just gives you way more access to the rest of the bolts. What I am going to do though, not a requirement, but I'm going to actually cover up the turbo inlet here, and I'm going to pressure wash all this because I don't want any of this dirt and grime, depending on how much buildup you guys have. I don't want any of this entering anything, so I'm actually going to just pressure wash this to degrease this whole area. That way it's just a little bit nicer to work on, and that way we don't enter any dirt into anything with just the amount of crud that's over here from the years, and obviously the wetness is attracting a lot of it to this area too. Okay, so I got a drip pan down below, and this is essentially what I ended up taking off. So alternator is out of the way. I took this pipe out of the back of the water pump. It just has an 8mm head bolt, and because it's got the flex pipe here, you can actually move it over there. Disconnected this hose here from the turbo, so took that line off there. It's got a quick disconnect fitting there, and then on here there's going to be this sensor here for I think oil temp sensor off the side, and then I just flipped the wire harness right here out of the way and on the other side. So this normally is tucked in there, but I went ahead and flipped this out of there over here, so it gives us a bit more room. And now, and also of course took off the oil filter. I'm sure you guys can handle that much. So now it's just a series of 10mm bolts, it looks like, and we'll take them all around the plate, start getting that plate off of there. All right, so as I take these bolts out, just some quick observations. So like this one is covered in coolant. A lot of them are dry, and then this one that I just took out completely covered in oil. So based on that, it's pretty much the gasket around the bolts. Some of them are leaking, so let's keep taking them out. So just getting the last bolt out, and this thing is already falling off, so it's gonna be our first look at everything. Oh, there goes one bolt. So there's the gasket. Looks very compressed. I don't know, we'll see. Let me get this a little more off and cleaned off and kind of see what we see, but it looks very compressed, if I could say that. A little bit of failure very at the very top right there. A little bit of bubbling, but let me wipe this down and see what we can or can't see. Okay, that piece is removed, and then next up is going to be this plate. I don't know if I'll be able to just grab this in my hand or have to pry it off. But this is, of course, the cooler in there. Looks like I'm going to have to use a little pry bar, so let's see what we can pry up against. I think I watched another video, and somebody pried right there on this lip between there and the block and was able to pop it, so let's use that strategy. So this is going to open up the coolant jacket in the block, so if it wasn't messy enough, it's going to get even more messy, I would imagine. Right here, there we go. Doesn't take a whole lot to pop that out. Let's see. So here is this. So there's that portion of it. On the back side of the oil cooler, look at that, made in China. So here's on the back side, you can see, at least from separating the halves, a little bit of gasket failure there. And then, not sure here, but you can see that it has transferred some of the gasket to there. So, hard to say, I guess. I mean, when you take things apart, it doesn't matter how good they're sealed, they usually have a tendency to leak regardless, but maybe once I wipe it down, I might see a little more indication of something, but that's that part there. The other thing too is we're not looking at the gasket on the back side of this, so let me pop this gasket off of here and see if it's failed between the plate and the gasket. I'll get this paper gasket off of here. It does seem like it's much better stuck in some places than others. Like, saw how easy it was to grab off the top, and down here it's holding on for dear life. So there is that. Oddly enough, like the new gasket is got stuff all across it. Like it's a steel gasket, but it's got a gasket on pretty much the whole thing with raised edges. this just has gasket material only where it makes contact, which I guess isn't a terrible design, but at the same time, clearly it has failed in some form or fashion. So, nasty job, but let me get all these surfaces cleaned up. All right, so I got the oil filter housing all cleaned up. So, end up using just a flat razor. So just carefully use one of these. Make sure that it is perfectly flat and you're not digging in or scraping it. And yeah, you'll be able to get a nice clean surface like that. And then I had to unload about 2 cans of brake clean to get this thing to look decent. I ended up washing it, degreasing it, and then brake cleaning it afterwards. Still got a little bit of remnants that I need to wipe up, but that part is clean. And now I've got the gasket that is on the actual block here. So if you do or don't know, that's kind of what happens is the oil filter is a brick that goes in the cavity of the block and is surrounded by coolant. So you got your hot oil from your engine going into the brick, and the coolant is actually cooling that brick in the block. So that's essentially what happens. And then we obviously have our gasket here that we have to get off of the block. So now I'm gonna go ahead and get this thing off of here. So depending on the gasket, this one is actually stuck on here. So it's a metal gasket that we actually have to pull off the block. So we'll get that off, and then once I actually get it off the block, then I can resort to scraping the balance of it off. So anyways, you guys don't have to watch me pry this off, but yeah, there is a metal gasket that is stuck here currently. The other one, actually, there's a couple different versions of these gaskets. The other one, the one that we're replacing it with, actually has rubber, I believe, in it. So anyways, this is probably the gasket or part of the issue. When I was cleaning up the other plate, be careful with this, you guys, too, because it is metal, so you could slice yourself pretty easy. But I don't know if it's gonna be a failure at the bottom here, but the top hole, you could see where the gasket kind of looked like it let up a little bit on the adapter plate. But here's this gasket here, not a whole lot sealing it. But yeah, the other one's got indentations. This one's just a flat gasket with a thin film of rubber on it. But you can see here, see how it lifted off of there. So that's probably indications of where it let go. This is one I was mentioning. So see this top one here, how you can see it's turned black? That's where the oil was going past it and getting into the bolt, was right there. So it could have been leaking from there, but regardless, all new gaskets going on. All right, so we got all these surfaces all cleaned up as well. A couple things. I don't recommend necessarily spraying brake clean on these surfaces because there is oil passages right there. You don't want to be getting and introducing brake clean into your system. If you really want to, you can spray brake clean on a rag to clean the surfaces. But I just cleaned them up with a flat razor, got them all clean and good looking. And then now we're ready to put the new gasket in, put the new oil cooler in there, put the other gasket, and then finally the oil filter housing will go on that and all of our 10 mil bolts. So let's get it in there. All right, should be self-explanatory, but make sure you match up your old gaskets with your new. In this case, this is the new one. It's a lot different than the one that I just took off, but this one looks a little bit better. It's got rubber all around the sealing surfaces instead of just one big flat gasket. So put the gasket on and we'll put the brick in. All right, so I just hung it there. Bolts aren't lined up or anything like that, but it will kind of sit there while you get your next gasket in. So this one, I'll have to get this in the correct orientation, get this one on here, and then we'll put the oil filter housing and start hanging it with some bolts. All right, so we got this here. We'll grab our oil filter housing. Okay, and here we go with this piece. Feed it all down in here. And then we're gonna grab a bolt and try to hang this whole thing. So I'm gonna start with the top one in the center and just kind of layer it all up so I can get everything situated and into place. So top center bolt is the one that I'm starting with, and then I'm just gonna get the rest of my bolts, go around, get them all kind of just started, nothing crazy. And once I get them all started on the threads, then we'll get around to tighten them down in a crisscross pattern and get to our torque specs. Okay, once you got all your bolts hand tight, I'm gonna put the sequence up on the screen here. 212 inch-pounds with a torque wrench, not foot-pounds, 212 inch-pounds is what you're going to tighten them to, and do it in the sequence that I show you. All right, and that's pretty much it. So I know you guys, once you figure out how to do it, you guys are gonna click off the video, and you guys wanted to see how to get into this, but everything else is gonna be the reverse. Put your oil filter back on, put your alternator back on, fill it back up with fluid and whatnot. I will recommend that you probably should change your engine oil. So if you can time this around the time that you're gonna change the engine oil anyways, I would recommend doing this job, maybe letting it run for a few minutes and then dropping the oil, just in case you get anything into those oil passages. That way it has a chance to run it through, and then you can drop it out with your oil. So anyways, if you guys found this helpful or informative, give it a thumbs up. Check out the other videos on the channel. We got a lot of stuff on Cummins, both 5th gen stuff and also 4th gen Ram stuff. So check out those other videos. Also support your boy. Go head over to Shop Boosted. We got a lot of stuff over there for you guys, but I'll link the product that we use to get this job done down in the description below for you guys. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys on the next video.